very pleased to be invited to share my story with you today. This search began nearly 4 years ago. Please hold any questions until the end. A chance remark from my father, Nat Price, launched my quest to find out who his mother was. He had thought her maiden name was Fanny Jacobs from a birth certificate obtained many years ago when he and my mother were traveling abroad. My grandfather, Samuel Price, never discussed his background and never answered any questions, and it's typical. When my father was newly married and fighting a serious respiratory infection in 1938, my very worried grandfather told him that Fanny, his birth mother, had died of tuberculosis in Worcester when my father was a baby. In 1920, Sam Price remarried, and the family grew with the subsequent birth of 2 daughters. My father said he always sensed that he didn't resemble any of his known family. My father's complexion is fair, and his hair was light, unlike his relatives. My grandfather provided no details and no explanations. Fast forward to 2006. My father, then a 91-year-old widower, was planning a 5-week trip to Switzerland to escape August in Florida. He needed a new certified passport as his previous one had expired. So he applied for a new copy of his birth certificate as the original was lost. He was flabbergasted to find that the name of his birth mother was now different. Fanny Flatt, not Fanny Jacobs. Even his date of birth was different by a day, still on God the holiday. He mentioned the difference to me and commented he never knew his birth mother, and now he had 2 of them. Although he made light of this, I was disturbed by this discrepancy and decided to investigate. Now, I've been, as Rebecca said, I've been a circulation librarian involved with patron registrations and statistics at this library for 37 years. So I have a deep appreciation for accuracy. I decided to do some detective work. I was determined to see if I could solve this puzzle. But how to begin? I sent a letter to the city clerk's office in Worcester asking for their help, very politely, in clarifying the information, and I attached copies of both birth certificates with their volume and page numbers. I also requested a copy of the death certificate of my grandmother. The city clerk informed us that the birth records from 1915, when my father was born, had been transferred from Worcester to the Massachusetts Archives at Columbia Point in Boston. Hirsch and I took the T to Columbia Point and found the more recent birth certificate on microfilm. We were told that the earlier handwritten records didn't exist. The research archivist and staff at the NASA Archives, they went out of their way to find the documents and saved us a lot of time, obviously. They had received my original plea for help and responded by sending a photocopy of my father's correct birth record, and I quote, "because you had received 2 copies of the same birth certificate from the state with different information each time," end quote. On our own at the archives, we found the June 21st, 1913 Worcester marriage record for Fanny Flatt and Samuel Price, and the names of their parents, my great-grandparents. Unexpectedly, the city clerk's office in Worcester notified me by phone, they never used the phone, that they had found a death certificate for a Fanny Price who had died in Worcester in November 26, 1917, and her father's name was Hillel Flatt. My grandfather's first name didn't appear on the document, only the surname Price. I was confused by the death certificate, as I thought that Fanny had died around in 1915, soon after my father's birth. That's what he said. Now that we had the death record, I wanted to visit her gravesite. So on the first free Sunday in April 2008, we drove to the Worcester Hebrew Cemetery in nearby Leicester and walked about the older sections searching for the headstone. Hirsch found the headstone for Fanny Price. Sega Malka, daughter of Hannah Burkle and Hillel Slatt, who died in 1917 at the age of 24, when my father was actually 2.5 years old. We took photographs, as you can see, and shared our discoveries with my father and other members of our family. We could translate the stone, but we sent it to my son so he could give us all the information on it. One of the more memorable and emotional moments occurred when my father, at age 93, came up from Florida to visit, and we took him to his mother's gravesite for the first time. And this past September, we again took my father to the cemetery. Now you'll notice the name says Fenny, F-E-N-N-Y. And every time you see the name, it has a different spelling. As Judy said, spelling doesn't count. And it's what's been told to the person that carves these, that's what you get. I decided to try to find out when my grandfather, Samuel Price, arrived in this country, but hit a brick wall. That's genealogy speak. We didn't know when he entered, or which port he entered from, or what name he traveled under. But for now, I had the name Flat, with its various spellings, and the date my grandparents were married. Progress. Thus, I could narrow the time period during which Fanny would have entered the country. I began to search ship manifests, and I practiced, and guessed that she would have traveled in steerage, and that she would have used her European name, Fega. I think I'm named for her. I was so amazed to find her name on the SS Arabic manifest, arriving in Boston on March 6, 1913. It cited the name and address of her relative, a cousin, which you can see, it sort of looks like it says brother or brother-in-law. But they changed it. I don't think she knew the equivalent terms. A cousin named Joseph Yussel Burkle, living at 16 Rockland Street, Canton. It was so difficult to read the interviewer's script, which had been altered to say cousin instead of brother-in-law, that I was afraid I was misreading the information. But Fega Flat was the right age, and the time frame seemed reasonable. Then we made a trip to Canton, trying to locate 16 Rockland Street, Fega's destination on the ship's manifest. It's now a parking lot. It probably has been for a while. Now on the trail of Samuel Price. Using the information from my grandfather's naturalization certificate, the only document he kept, we visited the NARA, which, as Judy mentioned, the National Archives and Records Administration in Waltham, where we were advised to call Buffalo, New York, and request a copy of his petition for naturalization from the Superior Court of Erie County, New York. They're very nice at NARA. Hirsch phoned the Erie County clerk, who put us in touch with Mike in Basement Records. A letter along with a check for $4 for the cost of printing and a self-addressed stamp envelope secured a copy of the petition. And the petition is absolutely a goldmine of information. In the petition, we found a statement of immigration from Hamburg, which gave the name of the ship, the port of entry, and the arrival date. Using this new data, we went on a hunt for my elusive grandfather, Sam Price, using Ancestry.com. Still, no record of my grandfather, Samuel Price, entering the United States. Now I contacted my family on my grandfather's side, by now scattered throughout the country, and enlisted their aid. The family lore was that his name was something like Perevozhnik, but nobody could pronounce it or spell it, so he changed it to Price. When my aunt confirmed the story of my grandfather's surname, we began to search online for this Lithuanian family. We were able to find Simon Perevozhnik's arrival into New York in August 1912 at the age of 20. That sounded right, too. So far, only the names of Simon Samuel Perevozhnik's father, Zabel, and mother, Riva Komras, and his grandfather have been documented. My grandfather's sister, younger sister Rocha Zislia, died, reportedly in a pogrom, and so far no other Perevozhnik connections have been identified. We've seen the name, but nobody really gels. Little by little, we added pieces of information from census lists, other manifests, obituaries, which can be very useful. Jewish Advocate has a lot of them, and they go back in the Boston Globe, and you can get that data. They're write-ups, but it gives you the names of all the surviving children and, you know, all of that. It can be useful. And draft registrations, which they showed, declarations of intention when they come into the country, petitions for naturalization, as I said, for Fanny and also her cousin Joseph Burkle. We were learning how to research online. Hirsch truly enjoyed computers, and that's with the help of online resources such as Jewish Gen, which is free, and Ancestry.com, which does involve a subscription. We continued to fill in the blanks. We were able to find Lithuanian revision lists, which are like census lists, family lists, and tax lists for both sides of Faga's family. And we found brief death records for her parents. Hirsch downloaded and saved all the electronic files. Oh, and here's a plug. And we joined JGSGB, the Jewish Genealogical Society of Greater Boston, and added their monthly meetings to our schedule. And I saved and printed everything, just in case. In addition, I began searching for the Burkle family, anybody still in the Boston area. We posted on Jewish Gen Family Finder and checked birth and marriage records and death records. We even found a local Burkle relation who was polite but not really interested. So he did point us toward a few relatives who were amazed to find that they were related to us. So we began the continuing correspondence with third cousins from California, Oregon, and Maine so far. And that's just one branch there. 2 years ago, we actually met the Maine cousins and had a wonderful time eating and getting to know each other. And last year, we met the Oregon branch and are also in contact with other more recently discovered relatives. A few years ago, we decided to give my father, then 93, a Y-DNA test, as he is the last known male in the Perevozhnik line. Unique birthday present, would you say? we began to receive email notifications of matches, which eventually produced a perfect 67 marker match with my father.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. We actually, and no distances or whatever, we actually met Larry. He's related to a former college classmate of mine who is an active member of JGSGB. And guess who that would be, Judy? Shirley.
Shirley's related to everybody.
Everybody. That's what everybody says. We're still trying to determine the specific relationship between Larry and Nathan, but it's got to be within probably 3 or 4 generations, no more, because of the fact that they have the same perfect match, right? 2 years ago, we received a response to our JFF posting from a young man stating that his family was named Flat and also came from Utina, Lithuania. We found that Joseph Myerov's great-grandfather, Lev Flat, was my grandmother Fega's younger brother. Whoa. Joseph's family had lost track of Fega. They didn't remember her name, but thought that she was the one who came to relatives in the United States. Joseph, who speaks English, was born in 1976 and is an associate professor at the Nizhny Novgorod State University in Russia. He wrote that he was married under a chuppah and he has a young son named Misha. He and his family have been very eager to communicate with us. You okay?
Yep.
Okay. Very to communicate with us. Sadly, Joseph's grandmother, Framingham, my father's only living first cousin, died just a month before we found each other. But at least we had that picture. We've been sharing information, photos, and our family tree charts, which now show many surviving members in Russia, Israel, and Germany, plus Fega's family, who are overwhelmingly involved in the United States and Canada. Those who remained in Lithuania died in the Holocaust, but the branch of the family who settled in Russia seems to have survived and held on to their Judaism, which is pretty impressive. Joseph, that was one of the aspects of it being a success, too. Joseph writes that his family gets together to celebrate some of the Jewish holidays, and he mentioned a synagogue where his cousin Yana was married under the chuppah, too. Joseph's family is delighted to know about our branch of the family, and they're sharing their information and photos with us. Perhaps one day we will meet him. In February, my father, Hirsch, and I met Yana in Brooklyn, and my father was thrilled, especially when she told him that he resembled Framingham, his first cousin who has died. My father is hoping that someone, somewhere, has a photograph of his mother, Fega. So far, no luck. And about 2 months ago, I was contacted by a Burkle, again through Jewish Gen Family Finder, from Manitoba, who sent us additional information that significantly increased our family tree. Thus, my father, who often said that he had no relatives, is in contact by email with a large contingent of his Burkle family. Together, we have traced this Burkle family back to the mid to late 1700s. And I'm still hooked on genealogical research. And Hirsch now has begun to research his family as we try to add new information. Together, we traveled to Washington, D.C. in August for the International Jewish Genealogical Society Conference. As you can see, we got involved in this thing. What a wonderful experience. So we share emails and photos and charts with my father, who finds it fascinating and miraculous to have so much background information after all these years. Who would have thought?